Today I'm going to show you how to buy stocks on Interactive Brokers. For this particular example, we're going to use a specific case, but obviously it's entirely up to each of you which particular stock you want to buy, or if you prefer to buy an ETF or something quite similar. So if you haven't yet signed up or registered with Interactive Brokers, I leave a helpful tag above with a video where I show you the detailed step-by-step process to register on Interactive Brokers. But anyway, once you've opened your account, you're gonna go to login and click where it says login to portal. So what exactly happens here? You can certainly do this directly from these platforms shown here, but we are going to look at the basic platform, the basic Interactive Brokers portal this time, which is indeed the easiest way for beginners. However, this platform, Interactive Brokers, also allows you to invest through its mobile app, which is readily available on Android and iOS. You can certainly do it from there as well. In this case, I'm going to do it from my PC. When it comes to actually making the significant purchase, the interface is quite similar, so let's go ahead and log in and I will show you. Here we will have our main and comprehensive interface where we can clearly see our current balance, the readily available cash for making purchases, and this is something very important to know. When you make a deposit, which by the way, we also have a very helpful video on how to make deposits, which I'll link over there for your convenience, and if I didn't, please just leave me a comment and I'll promptly send you the link. You should always keep in mind that the money must clearly appear here where it says buying power, because sometimes you might make a deposit, but the transfer is still actively being processed, so it doesn't immediately show up as available for making purchases. That's why if you're going to buy a particular stock, you might see a message saying you don't have enough balance, and that's simply because the transfer hasn't completely finished processing yet. So always make sure that the available money appears under buying power. Now, to buy a stock, you just need to know exactly which stock you want to purchase. Go to the top where it says symbol or site search and look for a stock. In this case, I'm going to look for this one, NVIDIA Nevada IDEA Corp. Here we can search for it in two ways. First, by something called a ticker or symbol, which is basically, in most cases, the abbreviation of the company's name. In the case of NVIDIA, which is spelled NVIDIA, the ticker is NVDA. In the case of companies whose names are already very short, as you can see here, NU is literally called NU. Although this isn't always the case, sometimes the ticker is a bit different from the company's name. You can easily look it up on Google. Just search, for example, Google stock ticker, and you'll clearly see here that it's listed on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange, and the ticker symbol is GOOG, which is quite similar to the company name Google. But as you can observe, Google's actual parent company is officially called Alphabet. It's not actually called Google itself. So the company is actually called Alphabet. So don't be surprised if when you're investing, you see that the company is called Alphabet, but in reality you're investing in Google. So, well, this is just to make that perfectly clear. Once you've carefully chosen the specific stock you want to invest in, you'll then come to this particular page. Here you'll see the chart, you have all the information, the latest price available from supply and demand, because that's how everything works. So the selling and the buying, for example, someone has offered 848.62 and another individual is willing to buy at 848.57. Well, that particular value keeps changing constantly as new offers and bids come in. Now, once we're here, we find a lot of information from the app. Of course, each of you should read it as you wish. The market capitalization, general information, all the details about NVIDIA. Here on the right, we can clearly see NVIDIA's upcoming events. These can sometimes even affect the price, so it's important to keep that in mind. Here we have different types of investments. We could, for example, select options. So these are the options we have available here to invest, but we're going to make a basic investment. We're not going to invest in options or anything like that. By the way, one thing I recommend is to go here where it says fundamentals, because here you'll find everything you truly need to do a fundamental analysis of the stock. What analysts are doing, what they think, whether it's the right time to buy or sell, the latest news, competitors, the social sentiment of people, and so on. But anyway, let's go to quote so we can make the purchase. So in order to buy, we simply click right there. We then hit buy. And this menu opens up over here, which is positioned right behind me. I'm going to move for a moment so we can see this, a word from our sponsor. That's right, our sponsor is myself. And if you're truly interested in learning more about finance or how the financial system actually works in Colombia and how to effectively take advantage of it, or how to generate income online, and even how I personally make money thanks to YouTube, in the description I'll conveniently leave you a link to all our comprehensive courses. All right, now let's promptly continue with the video. Please go ahead. So we're gonna have it here on the right side over here. Everything, absolutely everything. So let's start from top to bottom. Here, obviously, we have the ticker, which is what I was telling you about, Nevada DA, Nevada IDEA. We have the price, we have how it performed over the last day. In this case, not so well. It's gone down by 4. Honestly, that's not much either. Then over here we have your account, which is what I mentioned earlier. Your purchasing power should appear here. Here we have the amount of money and especially what's available to trade, because sometimes when you sell shares, you think they've already been sold and that you already have the money available, but that might not be the case. And it's the same with transfers. So if we don't have available funds here, we won't be able to do anything at all. Then here in the order book, this is where things start to get interesting. And that's because we choose by type of purchase or purchase order. Here first we have shares. What does this mean? It means if I choose, for example, one, then I'll buy just one share of Nvidia, which costs 848.08. But what happens when I don't want to buy a specific number of shares, but instead I have a specific amount of money? That is, I have $200, which isn't enough to buy a whole share, but rather a fraction. This is where buying fractional shares comes in. In other words, I'm not going to buy a whole share, but instead I'll buy 0.456, almost half a share, for example. So in this case, it wouldn't be very useful for us. What we could do is switch from shares to dollars as the purchase type. So instead of saying that I'm going to buy one share, what I'm going to say is that I'm going to buy $250 worth of Nvidia shares, which means that at today's price, when I'm making this purchase, I'm actually buying 0.29 shares of Nvidia. In other words, I'm not buying one share, I'm buying 0.29. Now, once we understand this, we can move on to the type of order, which could be limit, mid-price, market, stop, limit, trail, trace limit, market on close, or limit on close. For this occasion, I don't want to make things too complicated for you. Later on, we're going to do a super intensive course about interactive brokers, but for now, so that you can understand and to make it as easy as possible, we'll focus on these three: limit, mid-price, and market. So what exactly does limit mean? Here it shows us that the current price is 848.08, but it turns out that we don't actually want to buy at 848.08. Instead, we think that perhaps there's someone willing to sell their shares at 848 point. Well, 848 flat without those 8 cents here. So what I'm going to do is place an order on the market, and whoever wants to can accept that order and say, I'll sell my shares at 848. So yes, I accept so someone can buy them, and that's it. It's as simple as that. Now, after this, we can skip over to the market order for a moment, and basically what the market order does is that during the time the stock exchange is open, because for those who don't know, the stock exchange has specific hours. So if you invest outside of these hours, you won't be able to make purchases or sales because there won't be anyone to buy from you or sell to you since the market is closed. So during the entire time the market is actively open, what you can effectively do is simply place an order. This is the order that gets executed the very fastest. It's not the one that will give us the greatest profit, because what it does is literally look at the market. Well, the last sale was made at 848.08, or the last purchase. So that's the current market price, and that's what we'll send. And since it's most recent, it's very likely the price almost everyone is willing to buy or pay, so it gets executed right away. This order is very fast. It's not instantaneous, but it's very fast. Now let's move to another one, which I like about interactive brokers. It has one called mid-price, and the name says it all, it's the middle price. And in fact, we have the information right here, which you can read. You can come here and read everything that appears here. Here it would already be in English, but if you want to read it in Spanish, you can read this little section over here. And basically, it's a tool from interactive brokers that helps find the best balance between speed and price, which is what it says here. Why does it specifically mention speed? Because sometimes when we place a limit order, we might genuinely think the stock is going to drop, and we're perfectly willing to patiently wait. However, a considerable amount of time can often pass, and regrettably, no one accepts our buy order. So we ultimately end up just waiting there. Whereas here with the mid-price option, they're directly willing to thoroughly analyze the market's current behavior. As you can see, for example, in this chart, it finds the best midpoint between the buy and sell prices, like between the one asking and the one selling, and directly says, okay, this is a good price, we'll give you this price. Boom, done, it's sold, and you get your stock. The downside of this is that we don't have the option, for example, to invest a specific dollar amount. Here, as you can see, what we have to do is enter it in portions of a share. So, for example, 0.8 of a share, which would be $678, and we simply send that to the market. So, do keep that in mind. Then, from here, it gives us the very same option as before with the limit order, where when we are setting limits, well, how much are we actually going to pay for that? Here, in the mid-price option, what it is asking is for us to tell the bot, or rather this particular tool, the maximum amount we are willing to pay. That is, I don't want to pay more than $847. So it will look for that, but if it finds an offer, for example, that it considers very good at $847.50, but since you said you won't pay $840 or more than $847, then it won't execute the purchase and it simply won't be able to go through. Then over here we have profit taker and stop loss. This is very straightforward. With profit taker, then let's imagine that you buy a share, a whole share. here. So if we, for example, change this here to market and we have 848.14, we notice that further down it says profit taker, and let's look at it this way. It turns out that I bought this share at this price, 814.14, but I only want to make a profit up to when it reaches $900. That is approximately $52, more or less, a little less, 51 point something. So what happens then? Because when I activate this, it turns out that the moment the market is open, if this stock reaches $900, I won't have to execute the sale myself. In other words, I won't have to sell my share to secure that profit, that money as a gain. Instead, what will happen is that Interactive Brokers, in this case, following the order I set, will automatically sell that share and leave me with my profit, because I set it up that way. So this works for those who know exactly at what price they want to sell a stock. Now, a stop loss is the same thing, but in reverse. Instead of how much I'm willing to gain, it's about how much I'm willing to lose. So if I buy a stock, for example, at 848.14, and it turns out that this stock drops to $500, then I've lost more than $300. So what can I do? I can say that I want to buy this stock at this particular price, but if the stock were to drop to $800 at most, by setting this limit here, Interactive Brokers should automatically sell my position, that is, sell this right here. What exactly does this protect me from? It protects me in case, for example, I can't keep an eye on my positions and it's perhaps a risky investment. If it drops too much, I won't lose as much money, so that's what it's for. It will automatically trigger a sale. What are the risks here? It might drop and then immediately go back up. So I sold, but it turns out it was just a momentary drop and then it went back up. So I lost out there. That already depends on each of you, whether you want to set it or not. Now, regarding a sell order, some people might think that when you place a sell order, what you're doing is selling your positions. For example, if I buy a share of Nvidia, then here I should put that I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell one share and that's it. Here, it works the opposite way from the other one. In other words, with a buy order, we're waiting for the price to go up so we can make money. That is, in this case, what we're hoping for is that it goes from 848 up to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 and make a profit. But with a sell order, we're expecting the exact opposite outcome, meaning that the price drops, the more the stock falls, the more we earn. So I can buy a share at the same price, but I'll make more by going against the market. That is, if the stock drops to $500, that's much better for me because that's what I'd be earning as the difference from the price at which I originally bought it. So it's basically going against the market. The limit price and all of that work the same way in the other scenario, the profit taker. So it's the same if it reaches a certain price. So for example, if in this case I place a market order and the profit is well, obviously, as I said, this is the opposite, right? So in this case, we're not interested in it reaching $5,000 because we'd be losing at that point, but rather that it reaches, for example, $20. So then we'd have it set and the stop loss is the same. We could configure it and so on. And once you finish configuring here, for example, if I want one share and I set it to market price for the day, that's it. Then I can click on preview and it will tell me that I need more money to execute this order. So let's set it to a very small amount in dollars because honestly, I only have $9. And after the commission, let's make it $8. Let's click on preview so we can see this. And here it will show up for us right away. It shows that we're going to buy $8 worth, which means 0.0094 shares at the market order type. The commission in this case will be 8 cents. It's an estimated commission. It may vary. And I would simply click on submit buy order and wait for the market to respond and tell me done. You now have your shares. Once you execute the purchase, it will appear directly here under main positions in your portfolio. You can click there and check your positions. In this case, you look and see, great, they've given me the share, I have it here now. And you can specifically see the performance of each one, how they've done, the structure over a year, a month, etc., etc. And now you can go through and clearly see one by one precisely how your various purchases have performed within Interactive Brokers. If you would like another detailed video about this particular broker, how to perform certain specific things, how to invest in options and all that, please let me know in the comment section, and in the future I'll make a dedicated video for each of those important topics. See you next time, and thank you very much for watching this video. If you made it this far, please leave a little flying dollar emoji in the comment section. See you, bye bye.